Let's begin today's video. The self-governing community in Ireland. On the Antrim Hills of Ireland, researchers have found signs of a small community that lasted for nearly 1,000 years without a break. This group managed to get through a series of major historic upheavals, including the European famines, the Black Death, the Irish potato famine, and harsh climate periods like the medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age. Proof from digs, soil sample studies, and population records all show that death rates from sickness and hunger here stayed noticeably low compared to nearby areas. Scientists compared the social setup and way of life of this village to other communities across the country. The main difference was a completely free social model. There were no landlords or tenant farming systems, and every person in the village had the freedom to decide their own farming methods, crop choices, or even switch to hunting when conditions changed. This setup let the community adjust ahead of time to dangers like crop failures, disease outbreaks, or shifts in climate, avoiding reliance on outside things like traders or unfair deals with landowners. A mixed way of making a living also helped their stability. Studies of pollen and peat core samples showed that the people who lived there often switched between farming, raising animals, and using natural resources, thus spreading out risk instead of relying on just one food source. Also, not having to pay rent or land taxes let the community keep their food stores, lowering the chance of losing everything in bad years. By the early 20th century, this community slowly faded as the younger generations moved to the cities. However, the case of this village keeps being a topic of study for social strength and the pod community. Organization plays in facing environmental disaster, disease outbreaks, and long-lasting economic trouble. The murderous king of Yemen. Based on old records from the Arabian Peninsula at the end of the 5th century, the Kingdom of Yemen once went through a time of rule under a king named Dush. He was noted as holding complete power for nearly 30 years, with a series of actions described as planned killings, mainly targeting members of the nobility or powerful families within the royal court. Old documents report that Dushanatar would often trick the descendants of these influential families into coming to his palace, and then carry out executions mostly through torture and public killings. These acts served both to strengthen his own power and to show total control over the local aristocracy. Dushanatar's actions went on until his behavior caused a strong backlash from the elite families. An assassination was put together by members of the nobility, resulting in Dushanatar being killed in his own home. After his death, his body was handled as a warning. His head was put on public display to discourage others from misusing power or carrying out mass killings within the royal family. The case of Dushanatar highlights the interaction between complete central power and social control methods through violence in ancient Middle Eastern dynasties. It also brings up questions about the possibility of keeping personal authority within a layered and complex social structure where noble resistance could lead to a change in rule. From a social science point of view, this is an example of the line between lawful authority and unlawful violence, as well as the unavoidable results of extreme rule on the historical path of ancient kingdoms. The source of DNA from meteorites. Recent studies of meteorites that have landed on Earth have led to an important discovery related to the origin of genetic compounds. Scientists looking at samples from several ancient meteorites have found all 4 chemical parts that make up DNA: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. These compounds form the basis of the genetic code for all living things on Earth today. This finding has sparked the idea that the basic compounds for life might have formed in outer space, gathered within interstellar molecular clouds, and then arrived on early Earth via meteorites and comets. This process could have provided the starting raw materials for chemical reactions that produced primitive RNA and DNA molecules, setting the stage for the development of simple life forms on Earth. Isotope and chemical structure analysis of the building blocks found on meteorites shows that they are not the product of biological processes on Earth, but were formed in the material environment of space under special chemical conditions. This leads to the thought that life on Earth may be the result of material exchange between planets, not solely of natural chemical reactions within the Earth itself. Based on experimental data, many scientists have wondered whether these genetic materials exist elsewhere in the universe, and whether life could arise on other planets if conditions similar to Earth's were present. The discovery of all 4 basic parts of DNA on meteorites not only expands research into the origins of life, but also fuels ideas about the possibility of extraterrestrial life built upon universal chemical foundations. This topic remains a major focus in the fields of astrobiology and prebiotic chemistry, laying the groundwork for deeper research into the formation and evolution of genetic material in space. The puzzle of ancient stone messages in Scotland and America. Archaeologists have found many ancient stones across the Scottish Highlands, bearing a set of carved symbols that repeat certain features, most notably geometric shapes, concentric curves, and unidentified picture-like designs. Thousands of such stones are scattered in places like Kilmartin Glen and northern coastal sites. The origin and first meaning of these symbols remain undeciphered, but they likely served as a way to communicate among prehistoric communities, showing cultural traits, belief systems, or old territorial markers. What is striking is that almost identical designs appear on soapstone rocks in North Carolina, USA, most famously on the Judaculla rock kept and revered by the Cherokee people. The symbols on Judaculla show human-like figures with an unusual number of fingers, spirals, cuts, and animal shapes, forming a complex system that even modern researchers have yet to fully decode. Cherokee oral tradition tells of Judaculla, a giant powerful being with 7 fingers, who is said to have left his mark on the stone as a natural boundary between territories. The similarities in symbols, layout, and carving methods between the stones in Scotland and North Carolina have given rise to theories about possible connections or cultural spread across the Atlantic in prehistoric times. Some researchers wonder whether migrations or interactions from Europe to America may have happened before modern historical records, or whether these are simply examples of parallel cultural development in 2 separate regions. Comparative studies of archaeological dating, carving styles, and the symbolic meanings have yet to reach a final conclusion, but they suggest that these prehistoric symbol systems may have had a much wider reach than traditionally thought. The layers of mythology around these symbols help preserve collective memory of unexplained happenings, such as the appearance of the giant Judaculla in Cherokee culture, or the local Scottish legends of gods, giants, or supernatural beings. From a scientific viewpoint, the stone symbols reflect a need for communication and boundary marking, but they also raise questions about the level of interaction between ancient populations on opposite sides of the Atlantic. To this day, the striking likeness between the Scottish stones and Judaculla rock remains one of archaeology's great puzzles, posing new questions about the connections between shared memory, native beliefs, and the possibility of transcontinental links in prehistory. The story of strange animal species. Fossil research and genetic data from many ancient animal species in polar regions reveal a complex history of adaptation under extreme environmental pressures. During periods of global warming, the polar areas once supported much richer and more varied ecosystems than exist today. Large mammals such as mammoths, woolly rhinos, ancient bears, and big predatory beasts were once widespread across the icy steppes of Siberia and North America. Radiocarbon isotope analyses of bones and teeth show complex food chains, highlighting the links between large plant eaters and their hunters, as well as the population's reliance on short growing seasons. Many small mammals and primates once thrived in the polar regions during the Eocene, a period of global warmth when coniferous and broadleaf forests dominated. Genetic markers gathered from fossils revealed changes in bone structure, teeth, fur, and bodily adjustments that helped animals keep their body heat and stay active under low light conditions. Comparative anatomical data from large marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs in near-polar seas also show major shape variety, reflecting clear ecological differences, with some species specializing in eating fish or squid and others adapted for hunting large prey. Thanks to strong jaws and flexible fin structures, ancient bird and mammal groups in Antarctica once included giant penguins, large birds of prey, and other flightless birds, as shown by fossil bone analyses from old sedimentary deposits. Some populations developed highly specialized biological features, such as thick bones, best insulating feathers, the ability to store fat, and efficient nutrient use to survive periods of food scarcity. In glacial lakes and icy rivers, certain fish, amphibians, insects, and mollusks evolved antifreeze mechanisms in their blood, forming specialized proteins to stop cells from freezing. Some species developed longer life cycles, deep hibernation phases, or changed body structures suited to frozen environments. Fossil samples and genetic analysis show that this evolutionary process was broken, closely tied to climate changes, migrations, and the spread of groups across continents. Modern observations of polar animals, such as polar bears, Arctic wolves, reindeer, Arctic foxes, and cold-water fish, reveal a tendency to keep and continue ancient adaptive traits. The study of these animals' genomes has made it possible to pinpoint specific genetic mutations responsible for fat use, temperature control, seasonal coat changes, and daily rhythms suited to changing light conditions. These discoveries help build evolutionary and adaptation models for polar animals, providing useful data for protecting biodiversity in the context of modern climate change. The City of Giants in the Grand Canyon. Deep within the Grand Canyon, the story of a city of giants has fueled debate for over a century. According to an article published in the Arizona Gazette in 1909, explorer G.E. Kincaid found the entrance to a vast cave system, perched high on a steep cliff. After getting into the cave and going further down inside, Kincaid described a network of tunnels and underground chambers extending more than 600 meters below the surface. There he claimed to find several mummies significantly larger than modern humans, each wrapped in dark cloth and seated on large stone chairs. In addition, the underground city contained many copper items, stone tablets carved with hieroglyphics resembling Egyptian writing, and stone statues in meditative poses holding lotus flowers, details often seen in Buddhist art. The records describe these artifacts as having a mixed style, making their cultural origin hard to pinpoint. Some objects remind one of ancient Egyptian metalworking methods, while others seem closer to old Asian civilizations. Even the inscribed tablets Kincaid collected have yet to be explained in terms of origin or true meaning. The most striking detail lies in the mummies themselves, estimated to be over 2.7 meters tall, dominating the shadowy spaces of the underground city. The Arizona Gazette report claimed that the expedition was funded by the Smithsonian Institution, one of America's most respected research centers at the time. However, critics argued that the whole account was a product of journalistic imagination or conspiracy theories. Subsequently, no verifiable documents about G.E. Kincaid have surfaced, and no official statements from the Smithsonian have ever confirmed such a discovery. The lack of archaeological proof, along with restricted access to the Grand Canyon area, has only deepened doubt about the truth of this legend. Amid these unverified details, the story of the City of Giants remains open to speculation. It could be a modern myth, a journalistic hoax, or perhaps the only clue to a civilization that once flourished and then vanished beneath North America's surface. So far, all theories remain subject to debate, leaving a major gap in the archaeological history of the Grand Canyon region. Punta, in Colombia, has become a focal point for both archaeologists and researchers of unexplained phenomena. Located near the city of Bogotá, this mountain is notable for the frequent appearance of unidentified lights in the sky. Every week, many research teams and local residents gather here to see glowing objects moving above the mountain's summit. The phenomenon has yet to be fully explained from a physics or weather perspective, despite being recorded many times using modern imaging equipment. Historically, Punta is closely linked to the Muisca people, a native community that lived in this region for centuries. According to archaeological and oral records, the Muisca regarded the mountain as a major spiritual center where they carried out religious ceremonies, including sacrificial rites. Material evidence such as archaeological remains and historical documents shows that these rituals were meant to keep social order and protect the community from outside threats. When Spanish colonizers entered the area, many community members chose to end their lives here to preserve group honor, resulting in a chain of events with lasting psychological and cultural impact on the region. Researchers of unusual happenings, most notably engineer William Chaves, have carried out long-term observations spanning decades and produced many reports on unidentified flying objects in this area. Gathered data includes photos, videos, and records of unusual radiation, though there is not yet enough scientific proof to confirm the origins of these happenings. Some theories suggest a link between the unique geological energy fields of Punta and the frequent appearance of unidentified lights. But such ideas require further checking through fieldwork and combined analysis. Punta stands as a prime example of the interplay between geology, history, culture, and unexplained natural happenings. It is one of South America's most notable sites for both archaeology and unusual research, as it combines remains of native culture with a series of physical happenings whose sources remain unidentified, laying the groundwork for future combined studies. The mystery of dark DNA and ancient symbols. Recent advances in molecular biology have introduced the concept of dark DNA, segments of genetic material present in the genome whose specific jobs remain unknown or undecipherable with current technology. Although these dark DNA segments make up a significant part of an organism's genome, they do not code for proteins. However, evidence suggests that they play important roles in controlling genetic activity, keeping chromosome structures stable, and interacting with environmental factors. The existence of dark DNA poses a major challenge for genetics as both their structure and biological impact remain shrouded in mystery. much like the concept of dark matter in cosmology. At the same time, archaeology and the study of symbols revealed that, since ancient Sumerian times, the image of two snakes entwined around a staff has appeared on artifacts and carvings. This design later became a medical symbol in many civilizations from Greece to Rome. The symbol carries many meanings. It may represent life, rebirth, or intervention in the passing on of knowledge and biological energy. This image still appears on modern medical emblems and remains a topic of interest for researchers in both cultural and biological fields. Drawing from these similarities between ancient genetic symbols and discoveries about dark DNA, an idea has emerged suggesting the possibility of outside help in human evolution, especially in light of myths and legends about the arrival of gods or bringers of knowledge in many ancient civilizations. Some believe that the distinct changes in the human genome compared to our closest primate relatives might reflect signs of outside influence. Although scientific proof for this idea remains unconfirmed, recent studies in molecular biology and biomedicine show that mental factors such as good feelings and strength against stress can affect DNA activity, particularly in non-coding regions. Experiments on groups under mental strain have shown that the structure and function of mitochondria are changed by shifts in emotion, influencing metabolism and immune responses. The potential for mental states to impact DNA is under further study, opening new paths for health treatments based not only on genetics, but also on living conditions and mental environment. From both archaeological and biological discoveries, the question of the origins of ancient genetic symbols, the role of dark DNA, and the possible influence of consciousness on genetic material remains a multi-field research topic, bridging archaeology, genetics, and brain science. Poverty Point Mounds. The Poverty Point Mounds in Louisiana, USA, are an archaeological site dating back approximately 5,400 years, predating both the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. This area consists of 11 large earthen mounds connected by raised pathways, forming one of the largest prehistoric earthwork complexes in North America. These mounds were built by the Poverty Point community, a group who relied on hunting and gathering and were thought not to have developed complex social systems or large-scale labor organization. However, archaeological digs have shown that the building of these mounds went on without a break for 700 years, showing stable social upkeep as well as coordinated labor ability across many generations. Archaeologists have found many artifacts deep within the mound layers, including stone beads, bone tools, fishing hooks, and various items used in daily life. These finds point to an economy based mainly on the use of local natural resources. However, the exact structure and purpose of the mounds remain unclear. No surface buildings or signs of group burials have been found on top of the mounds, fueling theories about their real function. Perhaps they served as ceremonial centers, community gathering places, or sky markers. Despite many theories, there is still no final archaeological proof explaining the reason for the building of these mounds. Layered data and field surveys consistently show a scale and complexity that far exceed expectations for a hunter-gatherer society. As a result, the Poverty Point Mounds stand as strong proof of social organization, environmental adaptation, and the creative potential of prehistoric North American groups. This site is also among the rare monuments capable of providing new data for the study of the formation of early cultural centers in the Americas well before the rise of city civilizations. Legends of the Yeti and wild people. Legends of the Himalayan Yeti and northern wild people, as well as stories of Zana in Russia, have drawn the interests of multiple fields from archaeology and genetics to social studies. In the folklore of the Himalayas, the Yeti is described as a human-like creature of great size, walking upright, covered in thick hair, and living in remote snowy mountains or ancient forests. Stories of unusually large footprints in the snow, strange nighttime noises, and distant moving figures are often cited to support belief in the Yeti. Many trips have sought physical proof, but most samples, such as hair, fur, or tracks have been identified as belonging to known local animals like the Himalayan brown bear. The case of Zana, in the Caucasus Mountains of southern Russia, in the 19th century offers another view on the link between legend and reality. According to historical and human records, Zana was found living in a village and described as having a distinct look, large size, lots of body hair, strong cold resistance, and semi-wild behavior. Recent genetic analysis of Zana's descendants shows she was human of the Homo sapiens group, but may have shown unique physical features resulting from interbreeding or separate evolution in a specific geographic environment. This case suggests that stories of wild people sometimes arise from genetic and human-related happenings, rather than the existence of a wholly separate species. Studies of the link between ancient humans and modern monster legends focus on analyzing ancient genomes, examining skeletal, tooth, and fossil remains, and comparing physical features with those of modern groups. Archaeological and ancient genetic data reveal that during the course of evolution, there were groups of humans with very different looks and environmental adaptations. Some vanished, while others contributed to the genetic heritage of modern humans. Many tales of yetis, wild people, and mountain monsters may reflect shared memories of ancient or unusual human groups who lived alongside main populations during their spread into new lands. Decoding these legends requires not only folklore study, but also a mix of archaeology, genetics, physical studies of humans, and evolutionary ecology. The results suggest that legends of yetis and wild people may reflect a mix of memory about early humans, genetic variety, and local evolutionary events, thereby expanding our understanding of human development and the cultural ecological systems of both northern and high mountain regions. Cocknow Stone. The Cocknow Stone in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland is one of Europe's most remarkable carved stones, dating back to the Bronze Age, around 5,000 years ago. This huge slab measures over 12 meters in length and more than 7 meters in width. Its surface features more than 90 designs, including circles inside each other, spirals, and unidentified geometric symbols. The discovery of the stone in 1887 sparked wide debate about the stone carving methods and symbolic knowledge of Scotland's ancient people. The patterns on the Cocknow stone remain undeciphered, and no links have been found to any known system of writing or languages that once existed in the area. Most carvings are made up of interlocking circles, small grooves, connecting lines, and deeply cut dots. Archaeological studies show that some designs look like prehistoric rock art found elsewhere in Europe, but the complexity of the Cocknow stone is considered exceptional compared to many sites of the same era. There is still no agreement about the function of the Cocknow stone. Some researchers believe the slab may be a primitive sky map used to track sky events or mark cycles of time. Others suggest it may have served as a ritual site for religious activities, or simply as a territorial marker, showing community ownership. However, no archaeological proof has been found to confirm any of these theories. In 1965, the stone was deliberately buried to stop further damage and harm from weather exposure. In 2015, a team of archaeologists from the University of Glasgow dug up the site and recorded every detail of the patterns using advanced scanning technology, paving the way for deeper research into these symbols in the future. Today, the Cocknow stone stands as a classic example of Scotland's prehistoric puzzles and raises questions about the link between symbolic thinking, craft skills, and social function within ancient European communities. Nagarjunakonda, located in the state of Andhra Pradesh, is one of South Asia's most important Buddhist archaeological sites. This area was once the center of the Ikshvaku kingdom in the 3rd and 4th centuries, playing a significant role in spreading Buddhism throughout southern India. Since the 1920s, Nagarjunakonda has revealed many ruins of temples, monasteries, stupas, writings, sculptures, and a wide range of religious items linked to the daily life of ancient Buddhist monastic communities. Archaeological work has shown that many buildings and artifacts at Nagarjunakonda show features typical of early Buddhist art at the start of the Common Era. The most notable features are the large stupas, which once housed relics and objects for devotion. In addition, hundreds of Sanskrit and Pali writings record historical events, building activities, and the gifts of kings and lay supporters. These findings reveal that Nagarjunakonda was once an international Buddhist center, drawing missionary groups from many regions of South and Southeast Asia, and even showing signs of contact with Mediterranean areas. The name Nagarjuna is linked to the great Buddhist thinker, Nagarjuna, founder of the Madhyamaka school, who had a deep influence on Mahayana Buddhist thought, although historical records have not firmly confirmed that Nagarjuna lived or studied here. Many legends and ancient texts connect this ancient city with his name, blending historical and religious elements in the view of later Buddhist communities. Since 1960, the whole Nagarjunakonda Valley has been covered by a reservoir created by the building of the Nagarjuna Sagar Dam. Most of the major monuments were moved and rebuilt on small islands within the lake, while many items were moved to local museums for keeping. Nagarjunakonda is now a prime example of how large-scale irrigation projects can affect archaeological heritage, and it stands as proof of the development and spread of Buddhism throughout the Indian subcontinent. The lost city of Tuhom in the UAE. On Alcinia Island, off the coast of the Qatar Peninsula, archaeological teams have uncovered a building complex buried beneath sand and rock, including the ruins of homes, foundations of large structures, and fragments of ancient building materials. First digs suggest this was a sizable settlement, far larger than simple fishing villages. According to ancient Gulf records, this place was once known as Tuam, a city that served as a key center for pearl harvesting and trade across the Persian Gulf for centuries in the early Common Era. Its good location at the gateway to trade routes made Tuam a hub for merchants and valuable goods, linking it with major ports in the Mediterranean and Indian Ocean. The key moment in the excavation came when researchers found several mass graves scattered around the settlement with burial structures showing clear oddities. In many graves, most of the skeletal remains belonged to young people, and there was almost no sign of physical harm, violence, or accidents. Yet, all appeared to have died at the same time. Carbon isotope analysis and genetic dating pinpointed the time of burial to the mid-6th century, coinciding with the peak of the Justinian plague that swept through the Near East and Mediterranean. Additional data from the Tuam site record the sudden collapse of local trade as seen in the stopping of goods movement, pearls, imported coins, and many signs of abandoned building projects. Stories passed down in the region long afterward continued to tell of a mysterious sickness that forced the community to leave their homeland, turning a thriving city into a deserted ruin. Combining all archaeological, biological, and comparative records with historical accounts of the Justinian plague from Egypt and Byzantium, it appears that Tuam was one of the major trade centers erased by epidemic disease. The archaeological proof of mass graves, the number of young skeletons, and the timing that matches ancient plagues together provide a classic case study of the impact of widespread disease on the social structure and fate of ancient cities in the Middle East and Gulf region. Cañada de la Virgen. Cañada de la Virgen, located in Guanajuato, Mexico, is an archaeological site showing the city growth of the Otomi people after the decline of the Teotihuacan civilization. Recent digs confirm that this city emerged in the 8th century, right after Teotihuacan, the most powerful center in central Mexico, collapsed. This situation has led to the idea of a large-scale migration with a group, moving northward and forming a new community known as Cañada de la Virgen. The city layout of Cañada de la Virgen shows a continuation of space organization, ritual practices, and building models passed down from Teotihuacan, from public squares and temples to sky-watching structures aligned with the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. Archaeologists have found clear proof of stone building methods along with ritual remains related to the worship of the moon, sun, and Venus, in line with the religious and sky-watching traditions that flourished in Teotihuacan. However, archaeological records on the Otomi society at this site remained limited. The growth of Cañada de la Virgen lasted about 400 years, after which the city was abandoned in the early 11th century for reasons yet unknown. Current research points to the possibility that environmental changes, internal conflict, or pressure from outside groups may have led to the breakup of the community, but no final proof has been found to fully explain this collapse. Although most of Cañada de la Virgen's remains today are on private land and have only recently become widely reachable, discoveries here provide important new data on population movements, the role of the Otomi people in Mesoamerican history, and the links between major civilizations through patterns of city organization and religious ritual. The survivors of the Pompeii disaster, decades of archaeological research at Pompeii and Herculaneum, long suggested that most residents of the two cities died during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. However, new data from human studies, ancient texts, and material proof reveal a more complex reality. The number of skeletal remains found in the layers of hardened ash accounts for only a small part of the total population recorded in government papers, tombstones, name inscriptions, and Roman-era citizen lists. Digs at various sites across Campania and other coastal Roman cities have uncovered records relating to groups of settlers whose names and origins trace back to Pompeii and Herculaneum. Some families have been identified as having rebuilt communities in Naples, Pozzuoli, Cumi, and even further afield in central Italy and Sicily. Inscriptions show that these survivors not only lived on, but joined the social, economic, and religious life of their new homes. Notably, families such as the Calpurni line built temples, joined city councils, and left traces in local records, property deals, and public works, keeping Pompeian traditions in new lands. Combined with archaeological proof such as horse-drawn carts, personal belongings, and coins found along escape routes, researchers now believe that a significant part of the residents of Pompeii and Herculaneum, escaped before the region was completely buried in ash. Other groups left by sea, seeking safety in ports around the Bay of Naples. This bringing together of archaeological, written, and material sources has overturned earlier ideas about the total destruction of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Although both cities were physically destroyed, the legacy of their former people lived on in Roman cultural and social life for generations, offering a new view on the strength, ability to adapt, and survival methods of ancient societies facing natural disasters. Lost Monastery. Lost monastery is the term used to refer to the ruins of a medieval monastery in England, believed to have once been linked to the lives of important historical figures. According to archaeological records, this site stands out for its link with the reign of Queen Mithridate, the wife of King Alpha of Mercia in the 8th century. After the king's death, she left public life and retired to this monastery, marking a period of change in both power and the role of women within the Anglo-Saxon ruling class. Digs carried out by the University of Reading uncovered the foundations of wooden buildings, stone floors, traces of chapels, and objects related to religious life. However, most of the buildings have been destroyed, leaving only layers of sediment and faint remains, making it hard to determine the full size and layout of the monastery. Written records about the activities and purpose of the monastery are very scarce, with almost no original documents describing in detail the life of the monastic community or its link to regional religious or political matters of the era. After Queen Mithridate's time living there, the monastery's role slowly faded from history. The remaining material proof mainly shows a continuous but unclear religious presence, leading to debate over whether the monastery continued to serve as a central place for worshippers or was slowly forgotten and absorbed into the wider changes of church and monastic systems in England over later centuries. To this day, the lost monastery remains a subject of study for many archaeologists and historians, serving as an important source for understanding social structure, the position of women in religion, and the change and disappearance of religious institutions in medieval England. The toilet goddess. In Etruscan and ancient Roman culture, the appearance of gods linked to environmental cleanliness shows the level of social organization and shared awareness about city problems. Among these unique gods, the goddess Closina played a symbolic role for the sewage system and waste handling, showing the link between mythology and daily life in ancient cities. According to archaeological studies and ancient texts, Closina was worshipped in Rome as the guardian goddess of the Great Cloaca Maxima, one of the most important building works of the ancient world. This system not only helped Rome handle floods, but also addressed the problem of city cleanliness, allowing the steady growth of crowded neighborhoods. Closina's role went beyond the physical world, as gifts made to her in ritual ceremonies were seen as a shared effort to keep cleanliness and order within the city. Closina's origins are believed to go back to Etruscan culture before being taken up and further developed by Roman society. Some scholars suggest that this belief system shows the shift between native and Roman religious traditions, as seen by the myth-making around technical structures. The existence of small temples, carvings, and ritual items dedicated to Closina is proof of the link between daily realities and the spiritual world in ancient societies. The honoring of the goddess of cleanliness was not only a symbol of the idea of cleanliness, but also a reflection of the Roman and Etruscan approach to city planning, where community-serving works were raised up as part of the universal order. In this way, mythologies about environmental cleanliness played both a spiritual and practical role, highlighting the skill of ancient societies in handling and protecting shared living spaces. The mystery of the chained skeletons in Greece. Beneath the ancient soil of Athens, a mass grave uncovered during the building of the modern opera house has drawn particular attention from archaeologists. Within the Phaleron Delta Cemetery complex, researchers found nearly 80 skeletons, their hands shackled with iron rings and arranged in layers. Most were young adult males, in good health at the time of death, with no signs of disease or long physical decline. The position of the bodies suggests a quick execution. Many lay on their backs, arms stretched above their heads, mouths open, showing death at the same time during a violent mass event. Archaeologists dated the skeletons to the 7th century BC, a period when Athens went through severe social unrest and power struggles between the ruling class and popular uprisings. One of the most notable events of the era was the failed coup led by Cylon, a famous Olympic athlete who tried to overthrow the tyrant Megacles. According to ancient records, Cylon and his supporters seized the Acropolis but failed, with Cylon escaping while those who took part were captured and executed en masse. The archaeological proof of chained skeletons fits the descriptions of this crackdown. although debates remain about the true identity of the victims. Chemical analysis of the bones shows these individuals were not slaves or criminals, but more likely belonged to the free citizens of Athens, possibly young men involved in political movements or rebellion against autocratic rule. The existence of mass graves like that at Phaleron reveals the extent of harsh control exercised by the Athenian authorities against opposing forces and gives insight into the structure of society and political violence within ancient Greek city-states. This group burial raises many unanswered questions about methods of suppression, standards of justice, and the political motives that shaped Athens during the shift toward early democracy. The specific identities, roles, and circumstances surrounding the last days of these individuals remain subjects for future combined research involving anthropology, DNA analysis, and historical text studies. Archaeological proof from Phaleron is an important resource for rebuilding the social landscape of Athens during the shift from rule by the few to the world's first democracy. The legendary metal orichalcum. Orichalcum was first recorded in classical philosophy texts, most notably Plato's works on Atlantis, where it is described as the main building material for the city's temples and structures. From ancient Greece and Rome onward, orichalcum has been linked with questions of material value, metalwork, and the real origins of this mysterious mixture. It was not just a myth. Some ancient technical documents mention orichalcum in connection with currency and luxury goods, underlining its importance to the Mediterranean world's economy and culture. A major breakthrough occurred in 2015 when archaeologists found 47 metal blocks, identified as orichalcum, in a shipwreck off the coast of Sicily, dating to the 6th century BC. Analysis using light study and advanced chemical methods showed these blocks to be made mainly of copper and zinc, with smaller amounts of nickel, lead, and iron. Their makeup differs from common brass, giving orichalcum unique physical and chemical properties, most notably a color and shine similar to natural gold. The appearance of orichalcum in the shipwreck near Gela further supports the theory that ancient metalwork skill had reached a remarkable level, allowing for the making of mixtures with controlled qualities and high economic value. In addition to physical proof, historical records show that orichalcum was used for making coins, creating decorative objects, or symbolic items. Roman coins have been clearly identified as orichalcum through archaeological and written study of the time. The value of this metal was so great that in certain periods, merchants and even officials used its likeness to gold for fraud in money deals or asset storage. Nevertheless, the original metal-making recipe for orichalcum has never been fully copied in any modern experiment, despite many attempts to recreate it based on ancient texts and artifact study. The importance of orichalcum also lies in its symbolic and social status. It was prized not only for its physical properties, but for its cultural meaning, often appearing in legends about lost cities or powerful ancient dynasties. The link between orichalcum and Atlantis continues to fuel public imagination and scholarly curiosity alike. Today, debates over the true nature of orichalcum remain unresolved. Some scholars argue that the discovery in Sicily shows a refined ancient brass, not quite matching Plato's description of the almost gold mixture used by the Atlanteans. The greatest challenge remains the lack of detailed technical texts outlining the making process and the growth of metalwork skill over the centuries. This scientific uncertainty adds to the allure of orichalcum, showing both the limits of modern archaeological knowledge and the unanswered questions about ancient material innovation. The discovery of blocks in ancient shipwrecks, together with physical and historical proof, shows that orichalcum was not merely legendary, but a practical result of material research, development, and Mediterranean trade in ancient times. The giant Roman skeleton. During the excavation of an ancient Roman cemetery in 1991, archaeologists uncovered a skeleton of exceptional size, far exceeding the average height of people from that period. The remains were identified as belonging to a male who lived in the 3rd century AD, with an estimated height in life of nearly 203 meters. This was extraordinarily rare in Roman society, where the typical adult male stood around 165 meters tall. Examination of the bones revealed many signs of a pituitary gland disorder, specifically gigantism, a condition that results in too much growth hormone production. Analysis of the skull showed damage consistent with a pituitary tumor, which is considered key proof supporting this medical diagnosis. Furthermore, the limb bones showed abnormal lengthening and uneven growth, typical of known cases of gigantism. Beyond its value for the study of ancient medicine, this discovery fueled debate in the scientific community over the origins of such exceptional individuals in ancient Europe. Some researchers argue this was a unique case caused by random genetic change, while others raise the question of whether groups with larger than average height might have existed in the past. However, there is currently no archaeological proof for a continuous presence of such individuals in the Roman population or nearby regions. The Roman giant skeleton remains the clearest proof of gigantism in ancient European history. This discovery not only provides a reference point for ancient disease study, but also broadens our understanding of biological variation in human history, while continuing to provoke debate about the shape variety of early human groups. The bottomless pit in Washington. Amid the forested mountains near Ellensburg, a modern legend has arisen about a bottomless pit, made famous by a man named Mel Waters, who went public with his claims on late-night radio at the end of the 20th century. According to his account, Mel Waters stated he owned property containing a hole so deep that even after lowering fishing line for dozens of kilometers, he never reached the bottom. Objects thrown into the pit would vanish completely, leaving no trace, further fueling ideas about the true nature of this geological feature. From the time the story first spread, the bottomless pit quickly became a subject of wide discussion, capturing the interest of mainstream media and researchers of unusual happenings across the United States. Later rumors claimed the US government immediately took control of the site, restricting public access, and was suspected of building a secret facility beside the pit. Local residents have reported seeing strange happenings in the area, including sightings of unidentified flying objects, mysterious lights, and even missing animals. Theories of alien activity, secret military research, or links to other unexplained happenings only added to the pit's mystery. However, geologists and natural scientists have pointed out that the existence of a true bottomless pit goes against modern understanding of the Earth's crust. A hole deep enough to have no bottom would quickly collapse under the weight of overlying material, filling in with debris or groundwater. Experts also note that despite many searches and on-the-ground investigations, there is no verifiable proof of Mel Waters' identity or the specific location of the pit on Washington's land maps or property records. Some suggest that the legend may have come from abandoned mines, old wells, or local shafts. Stories made bigger through word of mouth into a modern folk legend, showing society's lasting curiosity about the unexplained limits of the natural world. The story of the bottomless pit in Washington serves as a prime example of the meeting point between popular media, modern folklore, and the desire to understand supernatural happenings through a scientific lens. Even without final physical proof, the subject remains highly popular, broadening the scope of debate on the line between science, legend, and the mysteries of the natural world that remain unsolved. Marahuasi. The Marahuasi Plateau, located in the Andes Mountains of Peru, at an altitude of over 4,000 meters above sea level, is known for its number of hundreds of unusual natural stone formations. Since the 1950s, archaeologists and geologists have documented many rocks here whose shapes look like human figures, animals, and unidentified symbols. Some formations tower dozens of meters high, scattered across a vast area and forming a remarkable geological complex amid the barren highlands. Surveys revealed that the carvings and stone formations at Marahuasi do not fully follow the expected patterns of natural wearing away. Some experts have wondered whether there might have been human action, though most geologists maintain that the features result from climate changes, erosion, and geological processes happening over millions of years. To date, however, no final archaeological proof has been found of direct work by ancient civilizations on these rock structures. Alongside scientific ideas of natural origin, Marahuasi has become a focal point for debate about the possible existence of unknown beings. Some observers have reported traces of small tombs and passageways only about a meter high, raising questions about whether beings smaller than modern humans once lived in the area. Others have speculated even more broadly, suggesting that the site might be linked to non-human creatures or happenings of extraterrestrial origin. As yet, none of these ideas has been confirmed through careful scientific investigation. Marahuasi remains an ongoing subject of combined research in geology, archaeology, anthropology, and evolutionary biology, and stands as a symbol of the rich variety of landscape forms and the lasting limits of human understanding about Earth's ancient past. The ice monster Shanu in Algonquin legend. The ice monster known as Shanu in Algonquin mythology stands as a striking reflection of the deep link between a harsh natural environment and native beliefs about human change under the pressures of survival. According to legend, Shanu was once a human being, but after falling into deep despair or being affected by supernatural forces, was changed into a flesh-eating being. This change is shown as a result of mental and social breakdown when individuals are forced to cross moral lines in conditions of extreme hardship. The defining traits of Shenu are drawn from exaggerated physical features, particularly its ability to grow in size in proportion to its hunger. These depictions mirror a deep fear of losing control over one's instincts and highlight the deep impact of a frigid environment on human biology. In its monster form, Shenu cannot stand normal temperatures, able to exist only in places of ice and cold, a symbol of extreme biological adaptation amid the unforgiving climate of ancient North America. Traditional methods for destroying Shenu, such as destroying its heart using salt or making it throw up, are not merely symbolic, but also represent a form of folk wisdom about factors that could weaken such a supernatural being. The heart is seen as the center of life. Salt is believed to upset physical balance, and vomiting is a metaphor for cleaning out poisons or abnormal states from the body. These elements show the interplay between early scientific reasoning and native belief systems. Culturally, the legend of Shenu is a warning about moral lines and the damaging results of breaking community codes. The belief in Shenu's existence had a real impact on behavior, daily habits, and the way the Algonquin people interacted with nature. The story also serves as a way to understand social happenings, such as famine, violence, or mental extremes, and stands as proof of how native cultures adapted both practically and spiritually to the cold environments of North America. Today, social studies consider the figure of Shenu an example of how shared fear is formed and mythologized among communities living on the northern edges of the continent. At the same time, this story shows the remarkable ability to adapt in explaining frameworks of traditional cultures using ritual and symbolism to keep social stability in the face of natural hardship. The fall of the Maya Empire. Archaeological research into the disappearance of the Maya Empire focuses on a multi-layered analysis of biological and environmental traces preserved in the sediment layers of Central American lakes and rivers. Beneath the muddy deposits, at the bottom of lakes near sites like Tikal in Guatemala, scientists have uncovered organic materials that settled over thousands of years. By extracting sediment cores, researchers have traced the rise and fall of Maya communities across centuries. The analysis approach centers on distinct compounds, specifically sterile and stannyl molecules produced by human digestive activity, compounds that are stable and easily identified when built up over long periods in sediments. Changes in the amount of these compounds across different layers of mud allow scholars to rebuild population trends for the Maya through various historical periods. Spikes in these compounds reflect times of dense population and strong resource use, while sudden drops are matched by other proof in the sediment layers, such as periods of long drought, greatly reduced rainfall, water crises, and the collapse of large-scale farming. These cycles are supported by chemical analysis, as well as the presence of ash layers, burned plant remains, and changes in pollen structure within the same time frames. The data revealed that during long dry periods, farmlands were exhausted, water sources dried up, and people were forced to move to resource-rich areas or leave their cities altogether. Each phase of decline caused shifts in social structure, sowed the seeds for internal conflict, city-state warfare, and ultimately the collapse of the central ruling system. A particularly noteworthy discovery is the sudden change in population density coinciding with the Spanish invasion. Sediment layers from the late 17th century show a spike in human-derived organic traces, reflecting a large number of refugees fleeing warfare and genocide as the Spanish advanced, an event not previously recorded in traditional archaeology or Spanish colonial records. Through this method, modern science has provided the first indirect proof of large-scale population movements among the Maya. The collapse of the Maya was not the result of a single disaster, but rather the combined effect of extreme climate events, resource exhaustion, social crisis, and the entry of foreign powers. The combination of sediment analysis, archaeological layering, and historical records has shed light on key factors behind the decline of a civilization that had flourished for thousands of years. In Central found a prehistoric human skeleton dating back some 31,000 years. The most remarkable feature of this find was clear proof of a surgical amputation of the left leg, performed in the distant past. Careful examination of the remaining bone showed a clean cut and healing, showing that the individual lived for many years after the procedure, the oldest such proof of surgical limb removal ever documented in human history. Analysis revealed that the amputation was not the result of an accident, but rather a planned, controlled operation taking place much earlier than previously believed. Until this discovery, scientists had generally thought that medical surgery only appeared with settled farming societies after the Neolithic Revolution, about 10,000 years ago. Yet, this skeleton shows that medical knowledge and infection control practices existed among hunter-gatherer societies in Southeast Asia long before that. Further study of the surrounding earth and burial setting confirmed this was a planned burial with the body carefully arranged, suggesting an organized community that supported and cared for seriously injured members. This discovery is reshaping our understanding of prehistoric development in Southeast Asia, opening new lines of inquiry into the history of medicine and the biological ability of ancient humans to adapt in harsh environments. Researchers continue to search for further proof to better understand the skills, tools, and living conditions of the people who performed this ancient amputation. The medieval rat catcher. In medieval European society, the growth of cities brought ever-worsening sanitation problems, providing ideal conditions for rodents to thrive. The job of rat catching emerged as a needed response to the spread of disease, especially during outbreaks of the Black Death in the 14th century. Rat catchers were typically drawn from the lowest social classes, hired to collect and kill rats in exchange for fees from homeowners, merchants, or city authorities. Traditional rat-catching methods relied mainly on mechanical traps, poison baits, and the use of trained dogs and ferrets. Beyond controlling rodent numbers, these workers also served as early warning systems for epidemic risk. By the 19th century, as European cities grew with industry, the job grew into a more professional service, with pest control companies and the development of biological and chemical methods. This change went alongside advances in medical science and increased understanding of the link between rats, fleas, and the spread of plague. By the early 20th century, traditional rat catching gave way to the modern pest control industry, which took up standard cleaning rules, special chemicals, and research into the life cycles of rodents to prevent infestations, not merely respond to them. The professionalization of this field laid the foundation for public health and environmental management as we know it today. Once looked down upon in the Middle Ages, the rat catcher's role has become an essential part of modern city health and food safety systems, showing the job's change from humble beginnings to a key part in protecting community well-being. Turning points that almost changed world history. Throughout the long course of human development, history has been shaped by events that balanced on the razor's edge between dramatic change and the keeping of the way things were. International historical records note many turning points that nearly changed the path of world history, but ultimately stopped just short of doing so. One of the most notable examples is the failed assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler on July 20, 1944. Had this plot succeeded, the Nazi leadership could have been overthrown before the end of World War II, fundamentally changing the political landscape of Europe and the world in the post-war era. A similar case can be found with Vladimir Lenin in 1918. The failed assassination attempt allowed Lenin to continue leading the Soviet government, laying the groundwork for the formation of the Soviet Union and the entire world order of the 20th century. Had Lenin been removed from power at that key moment, the Soviet Union might never have come into being or might have emerged in a completely different form, with consequences spreading out to include the rise of Stalin, the Great Purge, and the global upheavals that followed. The collapse of Napoleon's army during the 1812 Russian campaign stands as another historical milestone where, had the outcome been different, the face of 19th century Europe would have been deeply changed. The destruction of the French forces put an end to Napoleon's dream of controlling the continent, allowing the old powers to restore order at the Congress of Vienna. If Napoleon had won, the chain of events leading to World War I and World War II might have unfolded in forms completely unknown to us today. Another military event with world-shaping results was the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest in 09 CE, where 3 Roman legions were destroyed by Germanic tribes. This defeat stopped the Romanization of lands north of the Rhine and kept a Europe divided by language and culture. Had the Romans won, later models of European statehood, systems of law, language, and social structures might have taken completely different paths. Not all key moments in history are limited to the areas of war and politics. The Black Death of the 14th century wiped out nearly a third of Europe's population, causing sweeping social and economic changes. But it was not quite enough to end the continent's development entirely. Had the death rate been higher or the pandemic lasted longer, the world population map might have been radically redrawn. Similarly, disastrous famines, economic crises, and near-collapse events, such as the struggles of the Jamestown colony in early 17th century North America, all serve as examples of tipping points that could have permanently reshaped regional and global history had the outcomes been otherwise. Analyzing these almost history-changing events reveals not only the randomness and weakness built into the course of human progress, but also highlights the key role played by individual actions, whether disease, political decisions, and unpredictable developments. Though different outcomes remain only in the realm of hypothesis, they help researchers gain a clearer understanding of the forces at work and the patterns of historical change on a global scale. The story of the Neanderthal. In the long story of human evolution, Neanderthals once ruled Europe and Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, before vanishing completely, around 40,000 years ago. The disappearance of the Neanderthals remains a subject of ongoing debate. But recent research shows that weapon technology played a key role in their decline. Scientists have analyzed ancient weapons found at archaeological sites dating to the period when Neanderthals and Homo sapiens lived at the same time. The proof shows that during their overlap, Homo sapiens developed projectile weapons, most notably arrows and spears capable of striking targets from a distance. By contrast, Neanderthal weapons consisted mainly of short thrusting spears, designed for close-range use, and relying on physical strength and direct contact with prey or rivals. The emergence of projectile weapons changed the hunting and fighting methods of Homo sapiens. This technological edge not only increased hunting efficiency, but also improved self-defense and the organization of social groups. As the two groups competed for resources and land, the advantage given by advanced weapons may have been decisive, slowly pushing Neanderthals out of important areas and leading to a steady drop in their numbers. Modern genetic proof reveals that today's human populations still carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA, showing that some mixing took place before Neanderthals disappeared completely. Yet, it is clear that technology and hunting methods were more influential than climate or disease in deciding the outcome, reshaping the evolutionary order and speeding up Neanderthal decline. Continued research into the weapons and stone tools of this era remains key for untangling the dynamics of competition and change among prehistoric human species. The Star-Child Skull. The Star-Child Skull is among the most debated items in the fields of archaeology and modern anthropology. Found in Mexico in the 1930s, alongside a normal human skeleton in a mining cave. The skull was later taken to the United States and became the subject of intense study by scientists and supporters of extraterrestrial contact ideas. What set the Star-Child Skull apart was its large cranial cavity, rounded vault, prominent forehead, flattened cranial base, absence of frontal sinuses, and unusual skull sutures. Early researchers pointed out that the ratio of skull size to brain volume far exceeded typical values for children of the same age, fueling ideas about a possible hybrid between humans and extraterrestrials. However, later genetic analysis and medical checks revealed that the skull belonged to a young child about 5 years old who suffered from birth defects that deformed the skull bones. These oddities were likely caused by conditions such as hydrocephalus or craniosynostosis, which increase pressure inside the skull and change bone growth. Underdeveloped sinuses and a flattened cranial base are common in several rare childhood syndromes. Scientifically, the Star-Child Skull does not provide proof for mixing between humans and any non-human species. Ancient DNA analysis shows that its genes fall completely within the known range of modern human variation, with no alien genetic material found. Nevertheless, the Star-Child story continues to fascinate the public, thanks to its unusual appearance and the mysterious circumstances of its discovery. A classic example of how rare biological happenings can give rise to legends and fringe theories in popular culture. Baphomet and the Templars. In the history of medieval Europe, the figure of Baphomet is closely tied to the story of the Knights Templar and the sweeping tides of political and religious upheaval. According to original records, the name Baphomet first appeared in the trial documents of Templar members in the early 14th century, during the period when King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V worked to break up this military religious order under pressure and torture. Several knights were accused of worshipping a being known as Baphomet, described in vague, inconsistent terms, sometimes with human features, sometimes animal-like. Many modern scholars believe that the name Baphomet likely resulted from a misreading of Muhammad, the term used by Western Christians during the Crusades to refer to the Prophet of Islam. Against the backdrop of cultural contact and religious conflict, such misunderstandings or deliberate twists were often used to justify charges of heresy. The legend of Baphomet slowly spread throughout European folklore after the Templars' dissolution, helping to fix the image of a demonic figure in the weave of classical mythology, even though no such being ever existed. In the 19th century, the image of Baphomet went through another change. The French occultist Eliphas Levi reimagined the figure as a mixed creature with a goat's head, wings, and symbols of duality and magic. a being that had little connection to the actual Templars, but became central in Western hidden traditions and eventually merged with modern ideas of the demonic and the mysterious. The evolution of the Baphomet symbol is the result of centuries of language, cultural, and religious mixing. The journey from a misunderstood religious reference to an iconic image of evil in the shared imagination shows the deep influence of propaganda and political power on the creation of lasting historical symbols. The legend of Gonzalo Guerrero, a Spanish sailor, stands as one of the rare cases of full joining into Native American culture in the early 16th century. After a shipwreck in 1511, Guerrero and his fellow survivors were captured by the Maya along the Yucatan coast, now part of Mexico. While most of his companions were either killed or enslaved, Guerrero slowly adapted to Maya life, learning the language, taking up local customs, and eventually rising to a position of importance within the community. Historical accounts reveal that Guerrero became a military leader under a Maya chief named Nachan Can, helping to organize resistance against Spanish attacks. More than a mere outsider, he married a Maya woman named Zazalha and fathered 3 children believed to be among the first mestizos, or mixed race, descendants of Spanish and Maya lineage. Colonial records confirm that Guerrero tattooed his face, pierced his ears, and so fully took on Maya society that he refused to rejoin the Spanish ranks when urged by Hernan courts. Guerrero's choice has made him a subject of intense debate among historians, especially regarding the complex dynamics of cultural contact and joining. He is not just an exception showing the possibility of social joining, but also a symbol of the creation of mixed communities that would shape the population and cultural growth of Mesoamerica. Rather than a story of conquest or conflict, his story shows adaptation and mixing, making more complex usual views of the meeting between Europe and the New World. Modern anthropologists and historians use Guerrero's case to explore early examples of genetic, social, and cultural blending in Central America, providing a foundation for further study of later contact structures and changing group relations. From the viewpoint of cultural legacy, the legend of Gonzalo Guerrero offers a vivid example of the strength and flexibility of human identity in the face of dramatic historical change, sparking ongoing discussion about the meaning of joining and assimilation in the growth of multicultural societies. The Philosopher's Stone. The legend of the Philosopher's Stone has its roots in the Middle Ages and is deeply woven into the history of European alchemy. In ancient texts, the Philosopher's Stone was never merely a physical object, but also a symbol of ultimate knowledge and the changing power of matter. Alchemical writings by figures like Roger Bacon, Paracelsus, and Isaac Newton describe the stone's fabled ability to change common metals such as lead or copper into gold. Additionally, the stone was believed to be a key ingredient in the making of the elixir of life, a miraculous potion said to grant health and immortality. The idea of the Philosopher's Stone is heavily influenced by Greek philosophical ideas, particularly the notion of material perfection. Alchemists viewed the stone as the purest state of matter, the peak of a process that might take years or even decades of chemical, physical, and philosophical refining. In works like the Corpus Hermeticum, the stone also symbolized spiritual change, going beyond the normal limits of the material world. There has never been scientific proof to support the physical existence of the Philosopher's Stone. Nonetheless, the legend has had an undeniable impact on the course of scientific development. Many Renaissance scientists and thinkers from Bacon to Newton dedicated years to the study of chemical reactions, laying the groundwork for modern chemistry on the foundation of alchemical experiments. Today, the Philosopher's Stone is regarded as a powerful cultural metaphor, representing the search to explore the farthest limits of knowledge and material change. The historical records and written works surrounding the stone continue to be analyzed, showing the meeting point of science, philosophy, and myth in the growth of human understanding. Egyptian meteoric iron. Modern archaeological research in Egypt has produced strong proof that the ancient Egyptians came across, collected, and used meteoritic iron long before the technology of smelting became widespread in human history. Chemical analyses of items have revealed that many iron objects, buried with Egyptian pharaohs and queens, contain exceptionally high levels of nickel and cobalt, signs of meteoritic origin. Among the most famous of these is the dagger found in the tomb of Tutankhamun, along with iron charms, jewelry from Saqqara, and small arrowheads and knives from the Old Kingdom. These items were made thousands of years before ironwork technology appeared in the Middle East. Beyond the items themselves, ancient hieroglyphic texts on pyramid walls and tombs often referred to iron from the sky. This term suggests that the Egyptians not only watched sky events such as meteors and meteorites, but also purposefully collected and used material fallen from the heavens. Meteoric iron was regarded as sacred, kept for ceremonial objects or items showing royal power and divine authority. Most of these objects were not for everyday use, but were instead used in burial rites, religious offerings, or as symbols of the divine. This skilled understanding of the origin and value of meteoritic iron raises deep questions for historians regarding ancient Egyptians' views of the universe and watching nature. Their clear distinction between meteoritic and smelted iron shows a level of material knowledge far ahead of their time. Both historical texts and archaeological proof show that the Egyptians not only looked at the skies out of spiritual respect, but also knowingly brought the gifts of the cosmos into their material and spiritual life. Such discoveries have reshaped our understanding of technological progress and the role of skywatching in ancient Egyptian society, pointing to an era in which the lines between religion, science, and technology were fluid, yet still gave rise to achievements far ahead of their time. If you find these mysterious stories fascinating, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next discoveries. See you in the next video.